The words October 7th are probably the most often repeated words in the Jewish community around the world today. And the reason that we're gathered here tonight goes back to October 7th, 2023. My friend Eric, in response to the horrors of October 7th, started asking a lot of questions about what's going to happen. Where is the world heading? What are the Jews going to do? Are Jews going to be safe? And probably even more importantly, is this just the beginning of a much bigger, more tragic, apocalyptic end called World War III and beyond? Or is there something that can be done proactively to deal with the current explosion of anti-Semitism and violence against Jews? And can something be done for the Jewish people themselves to understand their Judaism, their identity, why they're hated, their roles in the world, and can any solution be found to make the world a safer and a better place for Jews and for other people? So we were having this conversation shortly after October 7th. And I said to him, honestly, I know I'm supposed to be a rabbi, I'm supposed to have answers, but I'm pretty sure only God knows the answer. So Eric says, okay, God knows the answer. So what does that mean? What do we do? I said, well, in general, what we're taught is that when the Jewish people come together and they seek truth and they study Torah, that tends to be something that God is not only interested in seeing happening, but God can make himself more available to assist the Jewish people when the Jewish people are studying and trying to seek truth and know him and understand Jewish mission, identity, and purpose. So Eric says, okay, so how do we do that? I said, well, I'm pretty sure if more Jewish people, or if all the Jewish people would start studying a lot of Torah, we would see a lot of great benefit in the world, both organically from the Jews and also in divine assistance. And so Eric says, okay, so let's start a Torah class. Let's do it. And we did. And it's been a great experience. I got to meet the lovely people in this audience, and Jews are just the most amazing people. And it's sad that more Jews don't know more Jews in any kind of a real deep way. It's really sad because Jews are just amazing. And the stories that Jews have, the things that they've created, the ways that our minds think, the good that has been brought and could be brought to the world is something just astonishing. These are documented things. So I'm very proud of that effort, and I'm thrilled to be continuing. But Eric's question still persists. Okay, but are we doing enough? And are enough Jews awake, understanding of the potential calamity facing them? Are there enough Jews activated that are doing anything to help their fellow Jews and the state of Israel and all the things that we know as being so important? And I said, no, there aren't enough. But I want to take a pause in this monologue just for a minute to acknowledge the incredible success of the Jewish people in this last year and 4 months. It's astonishing. It's literally astonishing, and we Jews do not focus on it enough. We are simply not properly thankful, properly aware, properly appreciative of all the sacrifice that hundreds of thousands of Jews have been making for the IDF, for the supplying of the country of Israel, for the strategic planning and implementation of both military initiatives and humanitarian initiatives. I know, for example, students of mine have visited Israel and been part of a campaign to deliver an Apple iPhone, an Apple iPad, and an Apple Watch to every single injured soldier for free. Just one tiny example of a humanitarian mission, and there are thousands of them. And have we seen divine assistance? Let's be real. Did anybody think that Israel was going to somehow keep the world at bay while doing what it needed to do in Gaza without violent uproar and actual war from other countries? No. Okay, so we have the Houthis in Yemen, and we have, what Lebanon was doing with Hezbollah, but we thought it would be much worse. And then the takedown of the infrastructure of Hezbollah is incredible. And the exploding beepers is definitely the story of the century. That is the story of the century. And that was 15 years in the making. Could anybody have predicted that? I've been talking to a lot of intelligent people, all of you. We had a retired brigadier general from the IDF. Nobody predicted anything like what has happened in terms of a victory over Hezbollah. Nobody predicted it. Nobody could imagine it. And here it is. And then you have the unraveling of the Syrian regime and paving the way for whatever might happen next in Iran. It's all very turbulent. It's all very disconcerting. We don't know exactly the right approach, but just look at what's happened until this point. So I want to say that us Jews, us tiny group of people that are facing this unbelievable adversity of the enemies of the Jewish people and really the enemies of good in the world, people who are really dictators, people who have murdered hundreds of thousands of people and want to do more. We have the Putins of the world, we have the Syrias of the world. We Jews are almost standing alone, almost. Thank God we have some help, but almost standing alone against all of this evil. And somehow, against all odds, somehow, even with the problems that we have, and we have them, the infighting and the many things that we don't need to describe here, we're achieving unbelievable success. But it does not remove the trepidation that we have of what might lie ahead. But we have to understand that Hanukkah and the menorah represent that a teeny tiny group of Jews can vanquish huge armies and regimes and make them topple, and the Jewish people and their mission will continue. But we can do it much more successfully if we can activate more Jews to their calling. And that's really the purpose of this podcast. That's the purpose of the initiative that Eric is really passionate about. And he has very personal reasons for being passionate about it, in addition to the ones that I mentioned, which are general, situation of the Jews in the world. And he's going to share about that. And the goal is to really try to help Jews to understand who they are, that their lives are in peril, that the future of the Jewish people, even though it's guaranteed by God, but we have a much better future if more Jewish people are living the mission that God laid out for them.
Thank you, Rabbi, for that great introduction about why we're here. But as the Rabbi just said, I want to tell you a little bit of my personal journey, my personal story. My name is Eli Melech. We're in Miami Beach for whoever's watching this. Hopefully many people are going to see this. Vibrant Jewish community here. So when October 7th happened, I think 2 days later I was having lunch with the rabbi, as he said, and we said, what can we do? We decided to start a study group in our little community, and we had a number of people come every week. We did it every week on a Wednesday night, like tonight is a Wednesday night, and a few of the people that were at our group are here. And then we took a little bit of a a stop in the summer. I left for the summer, came back, and the rabbi said, "Okay, when are we starting up again?" And I thought about it, and people were asking me, "When are we starting our group up again?" To study Torah, talk about what's going on, and I kept putting it off because I knew there was something not right. And it finally occurred to me what the problem was. The problem is that what's happening now is not going away. It's just not going away. And I feel like and most people I don't think see this. I see it. My wife sees it. There is a deadline. There is a deadline, and I'll tell you that I'm not going to say names or anything, but my son is a soldier in Israel, and I won't say his unit. I won't say his name. But he's been in either. I won't say where he's been. He's been in places that you all read about in the newspapers, and he's been there 265 out of the last 365 days. And I went and I went and visited him in June. I was in Israel 3 times this year, for about 2 months in length. And I went and visited him in June, and I went to Mount Herzl Synagogue, which is the military synagogue in Jerusalem. And we went there to pay our respects to 8 of his friends, teammates, that literally died in the last 6 months. And I went to their graves. In fact, one of them, which was, I don't know how my son survives all this. One of them, he got, on October 7th, he was in the Sinai desert. He rushed to get his girlfriend back to Tel Aviv, and then ran to base. When he got to base, there was a phone sitting on his locker. He picked up the phone, and a mother, I shouldn't say this, but a mother answers it and says, this is my son's phone. Why do you have it? I said, he's okay. He's just out there doing whatever, but he'll be back. And he's one of the 8 guys that died that day. And my son was talking to his mother a couple hours. I mean, he was already gone at the time. He didn't know it. He was dead, but he was. Anyway, to make a long story short, my son was home for about a month just recently, and on November 20th, a guy in his unit, it was in all the Israeli papers, died. And I said, "Did you know this guy?" And he said he didn't know him. He just got back to Israel 2 days ago, and he went to his coffee bar where all of his team meets. And he said, "Where is such and such?" He said, "Did you know he died?" And it was that was the guy who died. He didn't even, because he didn't know his name. They know each other by different names. And it was like, this is what my son's life is like. And what upsets me is that are so many, and this is, I'm going to get raw and emotional, but there are so many Jews in the United States that just don't get this. They do not understand. They do not understand that, and I'll say this, and I had a conversation with my son. They do not understand that if things don't get better, they're going to have to send their own sons. They do not understand what this means. They do not understand what it means to not know where your son is for 265 days of the year. My wife won't sit here. She's in hiding because she can't sit here. She cannot live this. And if the people in this country, if the Jews in this country realize what is going on there, what the sacrifice these people are making, they announced today 15,000 young men have been injured in this war. 15,000 have lost hands and legs, and 15,000 young Israelis. This is absolutely a catastrophe, and there are people walking around in this country like, "Oh my God, this is not my problem. I don't know what's going on. I don't really care." Well, guess what? Every time they came for us during the Holocaust, the 1905 pogroms in Russia, in Russia, when a lot of Ashkenazi Jews ended up in this country, Spanish Inquisition. There's thousands of these events, but Holocaust in the 1905 pogroms. If you were Jewish, I don't care if you were religious or not, they came after you. So not being religious, not saying, "Oh, I'm not affiliated," that means nothing. When they come for you. They come for your children, and something has to be done. Something has to be done. People have to care, and there's many people that care. There's definitely people that care. But and I'm talking about Jews, but there's many Jews that just don't care. They don't care. In fact, there's people marching for Hamas. I laugh when I think of this Doug Emhoff guy, whose daughter marched for Hamas, who was pro. I mean, I don't know where these people are coming from. They're just obviously, I think in Darwinism, something called, what is it, survival instinct. She obviously doesn't have it. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, and I've got to watch these people when my son is little and his friends are literally just, this is terrible. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, to hopefully get beyond our little group in Miami Beach. So hopefully we spur some other people on to, I don't know, do something. I don't know what. There's also the other thing that bothers me right now is there, before October 7th, there were so many Jews that I'm not going to name names, that had such amazing platforms, whether they are in business, whether, hedge funds, private equity, banking, media, in celebrities, musicians or film people that were Jewish, and they would tell you what they thought about everything. Now, where are they? They're silent. This guy Michael Rappaport, who's the only one that I can think of that stood up. He's an actor who I knew of, but he's still not one of the major ones everyone thought of. But where are these people that now there's a time we need their platform? Because this is ridiculous what's going on. And if we don't stand as a people together, all of us, this affects everybody. Everyone that's walking around not caring is just hurting all of us that do care. I mean, that's my.
I can tell some.
Yes, please.
So,
You have to talk loud so they can hear.
okay, we came from Soviet Union in
Can you hear it?
1989, 35 years, almost 35 years ago. And why we are here? Because we didn't know who we are, our religion. We couldn't go to the synagogue. We couldn't go like in school when someone said, "Oh, you are Jewish," and you feel like something is wrong.
And tell them what they did to your father, please.
Yeah.
Just tell them what they did to your father.
My father went through war, and he was what?
World War II.
Yeah, World War II. And in 1973, he got the KGB took him and killed him in prison.
He was a war hero
Hero,
a Russian war hero.
Yeah, a lot of medals and everything. Nothing, and because I'm sure it's because he was Jewish. Yeah, he was framed, and it was we used to live in a small town, one Jewish family,
And the KGB killed him.
KGB killed
Just
him
tortured.
and tortured him. I saw him once. I didn't see him 1 year. We didn't know where he was. Anti-Semitism was terrible, and that's why we are here. And what I am seeing right now is just terrifying. It's horrible. We left because of anti-Semitism, and right now, I don't understand American Jews. I don't. We live in a small town. We have a synagogue and Reform synagogue. And I asked you, don't you see what's going on? Our president of the synagogue. She said, do you experience it here? I said, who cares? It's everywhere. What does it matter?
Pogroms in Amsterdam. It's just, it is everywhere.
You don't understand that they will come for you one day, and they are so like, nothing, sheltered, lived very quiet lives.
They don't see it.
Nothing. Yeah.
They don't see it, and that's what we're here for. We're here to tell people. I don't know what. So, Rabbi, what can we do? What do you think? What does anybody think we can do?
And you talk to them, and they do not understand.
No, I agree with you. They look like
What are you talking about?
They look at you like you're crazy. People think I'm crazy. They think I'm nuts.
I think a good place to start would maybe be to explore how do we get to a point where the majority of our people are so disconnected to the point that they don't even see themselves as part of the nation. So before we even jump to solutions is how do we get that?
What's the pathology that led us to this point?
What's the pathology?
Yeah. So the question. I just want to repeat that question so that people could hear it. And then we'll go to you, Brian. What Ohad is asking is, how did the situation become so difficult and bad in America? Specifically, we'll talk about the United States of America, where so many Jews have become disaffected, disinterested in their own Jewish identity, and basically do not therefore care about what happens overall and globally to the Jewish people. How did that happen? That's Ohad's question.
Modern anti-Semitism started about 400 AD with the end of the Roman Empire. The Christians and the Jews were friends. They broke apart, became not so friendly. The next thing, just milestones. Inquisition, Spanish, 1492. It wasn't only Jews. They went after the Arabs too. And it wasn't only religion. They wanted their money. What's new? All right, the founding of Israel. And Israel, at the founding, we were friends with the Jews. But
With the Arabs. With the Arabs, you're saying.
With the Arabs. But politics got involved. Europeans came in, Germans, whatever, and they created a division. And then there was money, oil, that created a division. Well, anti-Semitism was always there. The 47-48 War of Independence. I was there in 73, that's where I came in. My parents instilled upon me that Israel is very important. And I went there, I lived there, and I was there during the 73 war. And I didn't know for 3 days, and Israel was almost lost. So this is nothing new. Now, I never thought I'd see what happened on October 7th. And it's incredible what Israel has done. But people today, with technology, they have false news, different agendas, and we don't really know how to educate the people. To me, I love Israel. I'll do anything for Israel. And I hope that other people realize that Israel is not only helping Israel, they're helping the world, because we have a problem and division within the world.
Yeah, no, that's all very well said. I think what I'd like to do to begin to address Ohad's question, and it's a very important one, is to talk about how do people become disengaged from the truth? How do people just enter worlds of comfortable
Rabbi,
falsehoods?
You said disengaged from the truth. You brought this up earlier. They're literally protesting around the world that the Jews are committing genocide. And yesterday, they found 100,000 bodies that Assad killed. And where is the UN? Where is the outrage? 100,000 people he killed in torture. They found the bodies. And I don't see anybody saying, from the sea to the river, let's kill. Assad is still alive. He's still in Syria or he's in Russia somewhere.
In Moscow.
Yeah, or Moscow. But go ahead. Sorry, Rabbi.
So we have this concept that an entire world can fall victim to false thinking and be, distanced at the very least, or in complete denial of the truth. So here's, I think, a harsh reality that we have to face. If we want to be agents of change, we have to recognize that the reason that people buy into false thinking, ideologies, which, by the way, is what the Torah is really talking about when it talks about idolatry. It's false representation of where power comes from, or where is there divinity. The real issue, and I'm sure you all know this from raising children, is you cannot expect your children to have honesty and integrity if you don't have honesty and integrity as parents. It just doesn't work. I think it was Albert Einstein that said that leading or teaching by example is not one form of teaching, it's the only form of teaching. And what's happened in our people, and for sure in the world at large, which we can talk about more, is that people need to be comfortable with who they are, so they sell themselves on false realities as though they're true, and they live their lives based on those false realities. Everything from morality being a personal choice, not an objective truth one way or the other. People rationalize stealing. People rationalize all kinds of immoral behaviors, and then they're expecting their own children or generation to have integrity or honesty about other things. It doesn't work that way. And so the real problem is as soon as people accept themselves and their false images of their own version of the universe, now it becomes perfectly acceptable for everybody to have their own more comfortable false version of the universe. In academia, this is called the postmodern moment. In the postmodern moment, nobody is allowed to challenge anybody else's representation of the truth because, hey, everybody has their own version of the truth, and you have no right to disrespect my version of the truth, and I have no right to disrespect your version of the truth, and you have no ability to inform me of a different version because that's my truth, which is why you have people self-identifying as iguanas, etc., right? And nobody can challenge that. So that concept has become part and parcel of the fabric of the entire modern world. The entire modern world has accepted the live and let live, the moral relativism that, look, if that's good for you, hey man, that's cool by me. And the truth is that that ends up being the downfall of societies, because you need an objective standard of behavior, an objective standard of truth, an objective standard of morality in order for society to function.
So how do we, like I said, we're running out of time. I really feel like we're running out of time. How do we get people back on track? Because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And what I'm worried about is a black swan event happening. I don't know what it is, because black swan, we don't know what it is, that all of a sudden ignites something. I have no idea. That's what happens every time. We're at that point where it could happen.
You're asking the right question, but unfortunately my answer is not going to be satisfying. My answer is that Jews are the biggest agents of change and good in the world, and that Jews themselves have to demand of themselves pristine seeking of truth and moral integrity. And that starts with us. We can all look in our own pocketbooks and wallets for, is our money ours? Have we come by it honestly? We can look in our own personal choices in our lives. Are we living the standards of integrity and morality that we think we should be living? And the more we do an introspective analysis and self-correction of our own behaviors, that has the power to spread. And even though you might say, okay, but how many Jews are going to do that? And how can we get more Jews to do that? And that's a good question. I'm going to go back to what I said before. I'm going to go back to what I said before. The more that we demand of ourselves, the more it will spread, and the more that we're going to see divine assistance from God.
Don't you think this last election was a little bit of a referendum against moral relativism?
I think that's a great point. The question was, can we look at the last election as a move in the right direction? That American, United States society has now shifted the pendulum swing from the, let's just call it the extreme left, to somewhere closer to center, hopefully. There's all kinds of discussion of what Trump's policies really are. Are they right? Are they conservative? Is it center? Whatever. It's not the extreme left, right? Yes, I think the answer is yes. But what's terrifying is that, what was it, 50.5% to 49.5%? And, yes, we had, all these close elections that were won in the swing states and everything. But should it be that close? And what's going to happen in 4 years? Is that keeping me up at night? Yes, that is keeping me up at night. Because even though I can see a positive movement there, it's not at all solid. It feels very unstable to me. But I do think that, again, we look at what happened in the last year and 4 months, and Jews became more caring and loving for each other. And hundreds of thousands of Jews have literally been putting their lives on the line. Tons of humanitarian help from Jew to Jew. Study groups such as ours, I'm hoping more of them have formed that I haven't heard about. prayers that have been added in daily Orthodox prayer services for this entire period are still ongoing. We've seen phenomenal help. Is it enough? No. Now, I think the pointed question, and this is what I'm trying to get to, that Eric is asking, okay, but tell me what to do now. How can I get my distant cousin or my closer relative or my this friend or this acquaintance that is Jewish, how can I get them to see differently, right? My answer is the more we work on ourselves, the more our message will become clear and the more help we'll get in having other people hear the message. We need to clarify ourselves. We need to clarify our own morality. We need to, look, here we have the Chumash, okay? It's been around a long time. It's the best-selling book of all time, hands down. There's a lot of things in there that should give us pause in our own lives. A lot. Lots of laws, lots of teachings, lots of ethics that really need to give us pause. And I think if we, the people in this room, and anybody who's passionate about the safety of Jews worldwide, care to make a difference, you have to have your own moral integrity. And this is the source of our people. This is the heart and soul of our people, is this book. And are we living by it?
As my wife actually mentioned, we've been here for 35 years, half of our lives. And what we are noticing, we came here with 2 kids. Our son was 13, our daughter was 2.5. And our son was old enough to see what's going on during the socialism, communist, how, everything was done. He's aware about his grandfather's, how he was actually went through the war from the day one through the end, and it didn't really matter because he was a Jew. Nevertheless, actually what happened is that he got brainwashed, and at college and graduate school, now he is a college professor, and our daughter was 2.5, same thing. So we tried so much to explain and everything, didn't work. So what the point I'm making is that it's the schools. Our daughter we live in Illinois, she was on a campaign for Barack Obama when he was first running for the states to be a senator in the state of Illinois, and on and on and on. So where it's actually a lot of brainwash is happening is in our educational system. 98% of the professors are left, okay? And what happens is that Jewish kids a lot of times are losing their identity. That's how you see the Jewish kids protest against Israel from the river to the sea. And that's where all this thing is happening. And we tried so hard based on our own experience, and we were overpowered. We were thinking even.
But what does your daughter think that means?
She doesn't really want to talk. Our daughter is
you're talking about
smart
Stella.
enough to
What does
not
she
to
think that river to the sea means? Does it mean?
Oh,
Does
she
they
knows.
realize
She's
they want to
smart
kill her?
enough, but at the same
Of
time,
course she knows. I
her
know.
favorite paper is New York Times.
Yeah, but she
Okay,
doesn't
so
think they want to kill her. She doesn't
Right.
feel it.
She understands it, okay, but we cannot talk about the subject because it's actually she's smart enough not to.
So
not to have a
that is
discussion.
I mean, not to single out your daughter because it's every
Right.
family.
And our son, we can't even talk about anything because it's just
But-
absolutely.
so- I don't understand. Really don't understand. They don't what I think is, and you have actually in they actually have a relative that was murdered by these people.
Exactly.
You don't. I mean, we're talking. They don't even have to look very far back to see how it happened.
And
So,
there's-
but people think that the Holocaust didn't happen. They
Right.
don't think the pogroms happened. They don't think that They don't think that. Someone mentioned to me today the tree. You guys might have said it, or someone said it. The Tree of Life Synagogue burning down in Pittsburgh. That was 10 years ago, whenever that was. But guess what? What if that happened today? Because guess what? In Melbourne last week, they burned down a synagogue in Melbourne, Australia,
Right.
where my daughter used to live. They burned down a synagogue. What if they start burning down synagogues on 41st Street? I see cops, by the way, There's cops up and down 41st Street, and they're flying drones. You know, here's your drone stuff. But I see them flying drones, so they're checking from the air as well. That, you know, what if something? I mean, this could. I mean, people don't get it. What's going to wake them up? I want to wake people up because they're hurting us. By the way, the people that understand this, I mean, I gotta protect them too.
Until it happens actually to their families, like
Okay.
their kids.
So my question is,
Then
okay,
maybe
the
it's
German
good
Jews.
enough.
Let's take the German Jews. Okay, there were 600,000 of them prior to, you know, Kristallnacht, I think they say. After, by the time Kristallnacht came around, 300,000 of them had already left and went to Amsterdam. They went to Amsterdam because they thought during World War One that was neutral, but obviously in World War II it wasn't, and they all got killed there. But the 300,000 that got left in Germany, I think after the war I saw there were 25,000 left that were still alive. But most of the German Jews were not religious at all. There was no religion. They were not most of the the religious Jews came from Poland and in farther east. But in Germany, they were very assimilated. They thought they were German. They were not religious at all. My question is, when they were put in those cattle cars, were they still thinking that, oh, they're going to let us out? And then when they were stripped naked and walked into these showers, did they really think they were going to take showers? And then I wonder, so now they're naked in the showers, and they turn on the gas. Did they ever at any point realize that they were about to get killed, or they always thought, like the Jews today that are walking around, think, oh, it's going to pass, it's not going to happen, they're going to appease this or appease that, we're not, don't worry about it, it's never going to happen again. Well, guess what? It's happening again. It's happening again, right? And it's happening in Israel. I mean, 15,000 injured, 1,000.
Living in
What?
this kibbutz, close
Far
to
left
the,
people. The
Far-
ones
yeah.
that,
close to the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
All this carnival, whatever.
there was a story of one woman there, Israeli,
Yeah.
extreme left. So she dedicated her life to help Palestinians, to bring them to Israeli hospitals.
She was a friend of ours.
Oh, that,
Yes,
and that woman was
and
killed.
where, in fact, she was killed without any.
I remember they were talking about
So
that.
the point you made about why the election was closed, even though the ideology that Kamala Harris had, it's a Marxist ideology, if not neo-Marxist. It's because it's most of the students, they get brainwashed. A lot of most of these people who had voted are the ones that actually went through this, and they don't understand how it could be, and that's why.
Okay,
they're
but what about the
either in
people our
denial
age?
or they're not just.
But Sam, there are people
sorry.
our age that feel the same. I mean, there's people our age that are walking around. I don't mean talk about the kids. The kids, I think they say 50% of the Jewish kids out there are against Israel today. I don't get it. But forget those kids. How about the people our age that are 50, 60, 70 walking around that, they just, I mean, it's like, I don't get it. How they don't know it? They don't have it. They didn't know any Holocaust survivors. They don't know any, I mean, how do we convince these people?
I want to point towards Mexico. The president, 3 months on, and she's doing a great job, Claudia Sheinbaum. Third generation Jew. She is the president of Mexico, and there's no anti-Semitism. They don't like her as a woman, maybe, but there's no anti-Semitism.
In Mexico.
And the Jews can live a good life in Mexico. She's not religious, but they came together because she was so incredible. They elected her, and in Mexico, is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I just want to comment that it's true that academia has descended into the abyss. There's just terrible rot in all
Rot.
in
R-O, yeah, rot
yeah,
to the max.
in these schools. That's true. Yeah, and it started a
Yeah,
long
it started
time
in the 60s, no question about it. That was Vietnam.
That's why
That was
people
Vietnam.
are-
But I want to make what I think it's an important point that we have to acknowledge. First of all, we know our friends have discovered the billions of dollars that has been funneled into the Ivy League schools.
Qatar, right.
Right, Qatari money. And it's very insidious and it's very agenda driven, and they're doing a great job. But why has everybody been falling for it? Why have Americans been asleep at the wheel? The answer is very simple. The answer is because the American dream has shifted away from morality, truth, integrity, and true human rights to money. And whatever is the path to the money wins. And that's how they're controlling academia. Because if you speak out against certain ideologies, you no longer have a job, or you will not be considered for a position, or you will not be in this Ivy League school, which if you graduate from will quote unquote guarantee a great job. And here's the thing. We Jewish people, in addition to the society around us here in America, have sold ourselves out for the money. And we cannot think that the next generation is going to be any different. They're not going to be any different because that's not the way we were. That's my point. If you don't show by example that you don't sell out for money, you don't swallow a load of garbage as though it's true, because otherwise you're going to be afraid that you're not going to get a job at law firm X or at hospital Y because you didn't go to college, brand name, whatever. If you don't live a life that actually puts the money as second and morality and honesty and truth as first, people are going to be in denial of the truth.
It's all about money. It's simply money. People
that are choosing to remain oblivious want to believe that they will be safe, and that doing anything to endanger their safety, which right now is more about money than about their physical safety, is something that they don't want to think about and they don't want to approach, because that's more important.
Well, then we should tell them, here, give me this gas mask right here. And then we should tell them that, something, those people, like I said, that's these people that have platforms, that whether what industry are, they're famous people. They could be, instead of us, which we're basically a bunch of people just trying to do the best we can, but we're just regular people. If they were running something like this and they were saying something, then maybe, because that's what the platform's for. But otherwise, you guys are going to be having to wearing gas masks. You want gas masks, and you're going to have to send your own children to do this stuff, because this is just getting out of control. They don't understand. It's getting out of control. I know it's just getting out of control. I mean, and we need to do something.
Let's talk about the fact that in the Western world, we don't want to confront the evil, like we mentioned about Syria and other regimes, right? Because we don't want to have to go fight. We don't want to have to face that. We want to believe, whatever the deal was with Iran and so forth, we want to believe that we can just live and let live. And we're not willing to face the fact that the other people don't want to let us live. And the reason we don't want to face that fact is because if we face that fact, then we're going to actually have to put on those gas masks, and we're going to actually have to take a lot of drastic steps to eliminate those threats. We don't want to face that. Who wants to face that? Nobody wants to face that.
Interesting in terms of drastic thing, we're talking about a gas mask. That's actually a gas mask that was used in Lebanon. I won't say who was using it, but that's a gas mask that was used in Lebanon. And
because they were afraid of chemical.
Yeah, they were afraid they were going to use chemical weapons on them. We were actually doing this beforehand, but October 7th came around, and we started really, expediting this, making it, moving forward with this. So my son came up with this idea that, which unbeknownst to most Jews in this country, and I'm not attacking Jews. I'm just trying to wake you guys up. I'm just trying to wake people up. But anyway, most Jews in Israel, in fact, I just read today, 30% of them live below the poverty line in Israel. 30% of the Jews in Israel below the poverty line, and that's the poverty line. And then the median income there is like not too far off from the poverty line.
Is it Jews or Israelis?
Both, but obviously the Israeli Arabs are not exactly well off as well. But the citizens of Israel, whether the Arabs or Jews, are not exactly very wealthy. Okay, and there's a lot of terrorist attacks, as you know, happening, in restaurants and in the streets of Tel Aviv. There was one in Jaffa. I was in Jaffa in when was it? It was in September or October. I was literally at a corner because I was buying something for one of my sons, and the next morning on that corner is when they had that terrorist attack. Literally the same corner I was standing on. In fact, a friend of my daughter's was just got off the light rail train right before the one that came in with the two terrorists on it. Sure. And the point is, one of the things we're doing is, and this is why I'm telling the story, is we're buying guns. We're buying handguns for soldiers. So when they're at home, when they're in the army, they have machine guns. They do what they have to do. But when they go home and they're protecting their families, if you're a combat soldier, you're allowed to have a weapon. But most Israelis can't afford a weapon. It's about $1,000 for a handgun in Israel. It's about $500 here on average in the United States, but it's double in Israel, maybe because of tariffs. I'm not sure why. But these guys, they can barely afford to pay rent. They definitely can't afford $1,000 for a handgun. So we've been buying handguns for soldiers, and we've spent about $100,000 already on buying handguns for soldiers in Israel. So a lot of people I'd ask, people I've known for years, Jews, not just in Florida but everywhere, people I knew, and people would say, "Oh, we don't," Jewish people. I would just mainly ask Jewish people. They say, "Oh, we don't believe in guns. We don't believe in guns. They're dangerous. We don't believe in guns." I said, "Do you understand that if somebody doesn't have a gun when a terrorist comes by, first of all, people are always going to die in a terrorist attack because they don't know it's an attack until a couple of people are shot. But then, hopefully, somebody's not too far away that's got a weapon and takes out the terrorist. That's what's happened every single time. In fact, a bunch of our guns have already been involved in some of these, in thwarting a few attacks. So, but people say, "Oh, we don't." I mean, I don't get it. I mean, who are these people? Where are they coming from? They don't know survival instinct. And I'm afraid that, guess what? If something does turn here, it's like it happened in Europe. It just happened. It wasn't that long ago. It happened. Forget the Spanish Inquisitions. Forget when Rome toppled Jerusalem and took 75,000 slaves to build the Colosseum and then murdered them after whoever didn't die building it died by wild animals eating them. I mean, forget about that. You got the Holocaust, which is not that long ago, where 6 million died. That's because they just didn't get it. A lot of those people didn't get it. They didn't think, yeah, it's bad. They don't treat us nicely, but it'll go away. That's what people are saying right now. They're still saying it's going to go away. Guess what? What if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? I mean, it's to the point where what if it doesn't?
I want to talk about Steven Spielberg, who made Schindler's List. And
Speak up loud so we can.
Steven Spielberg, Schindler's List. Never again. Where is he? Where is he?
That's an excellent question.
I think we need to, where like a lot of the conversation touched on our brothers on the left, and we've been criticizing a lot of people on the left, and I think we have to recognize the fact that in our political system, a lot of our people are going to be on the left. People here as well are going to be on the left, and we need to have for ourselves that it's not just a left-right issue. Well, maybe you can touch on what exactly is the line, where because we can disagree on foreign aid or on taxes in the country, and we might vote Democrat, we might vote Republican.
Or independent.
We can't just say that the left is the problem or the right is the problem, where as a Jew in America, regardless of what you vote for, what is that off-ramp or say, this is where it's a problem, this is where we can't go anymore?
So, excellent question that Ohad is asking. So Ohad is asking, it's easy to have this conversation and in our minds think that people that are more conservative minded politically are going to make quote unquote the right choices for Jews, and maybe will be more sensitive to the plight of our nation at this time, whereas people, meaning even Jews, that are more politically minded to vote left, whether it's about the environment or other issues, that they're not necessarily, or they're likely to make the wrong choices and not have awareness about what's happening with the Jews in the world. And the question is that accurate? And more importantly, whichever party you vote for, or if you vote for an independent in the United States, like, what do we really need to be careful about if, in fact, we are going to care about the fate of the Jews and the world? I think that's the question. And so my answer goes back to what I said before. It's a great question. My answer is we have to be focused on staying away from false ideologies. The death knell both figuratively and literally, for Jewish people and for good people in the world, is the acceptance of false ideologies. The Jewish people are vermin. The Jewish people are the scourge of society. The Jewish people are the reason that there's this economic problem or whatever. All of those false ideologies, in America today we have lots of versions of and specific issues that are presented as truth and are definitely false. They have to be on our radar as things that are called out, debunked, so that we can keep focused on what is true. And it's not so much about the political party, it's much more about what the political party is going to do in terms of promoting false ideologies or promoting true values.
We need solutions. We can say, we've been wrong, or this ideology is this and that. The Jews originally, when they came to the United States, were communist or leftist because they came from Russia, they came from Eastern Europe, and then under Roosevelt became Democrats. So forget about the party. Maybe a Democrat believed that gays were equal, women were equal. That doesn't mean they were anti-Israel. We need solutions.
We do need solutions, but again, yes.
Challenge what you're saying.
Sure.
It's no one goes out there and says, I'm going to subscribe to false ideology. Like, no one thinks that they're thinking or subscribing to falsities. So then it's very nice to say, well, we have to strive for, we can't accept false ideology. Okay, what does that mean practically? Like, what it would technically,
Yeah, practically what it means is we have to decide the answer to the following question. All people, is there objective truth? Is there objective good? And is there objective evil? That's what we have to decide. And if people cannot philosophically decide that question, I don't think that there's hope for them to make good choices.
Well, that is the problem. Most of these people cannot, exactly what you just said. We have that problem. They cannot objectively choose the right, course.
Yeah.
So what do we do? We still have that. That is exactly the problem.
So I go back to...
But Rabbi, is that why only 20% got out of Egypt? 80% died in Egypt? Most people, Jews, don't know that. Is that why, guess what? During the Holocaust, you had 9 million Jews, 6 million died. Only 3 million survived.
Yes.
Are people just going to... But we don't want to accept that.
No, I don't want to accept that either. But, whether you go to the words of the prophets or you just talk practically, which is what everybody wants to do, of what's going to work in the world, the answer is truth will be the solution and false will be the devastation. That's just the way it is. So you have a question. Ohad is asking, so how do we find the truth? Well, it's not just because I wear a yarmulke, and it's not just because we have schools that are yeshivos, but it's been proven.
By the way, you have 1,000 students that you're teaching.
Yes,
right. You have a few students, right?
Yeah. So we have daily approximately 1,000 students that attend our institutions. But in addition to that, we have gatherings like this that are informal, and writings and any other things that we're reaching out to actually probably close to 1 million Jews in the world on a regular basis between the writings and everything else. But again, it's not just because I'm part of these organizations, it's because we can see the horror that comes from the false ideologies that the world has accepted that are specifically contradicted by what the Torah teaches. It's specifically contradicted. And we have to face that. And if we want our children to do differently, we have to face our own unwillingness to adopt all the truths of the Torah as our own. So sure, lots of people have adopted love your neighbor like yourself. That's a nice famous one. But much less people have adopted do not steal. Let's be honest. It's the same book. So if we're making these accommodations, what do we expect from anybody else? And so again, I'm going back to the fact we have to be much more rigorous in our own behaviors, thinking, and then we can be agents of change. And I do think we will be much more successful at being agents of change for our fellow Jews if we shape up. And so how do we know what's true and what's false? It's right here. You have any questions? Most of the time, the answer is pretty clear. And if it's not crystal clear right away, it becomes clear after exploration.
But the biggest problem, basically, I agree with you. It's all sitting right here. But the people we're talking about that are that are either against Israel, Jews I'm talking about, obviously, they're either against Israel or just don't care. They really don't care about this. I'm tired of listening to people tell me, oh, it's just made up. It's not. Oh, I'm agnostic. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of it. It's not,
So,
real.
yes,
I mean,
I hear that challenge. It's frustrating
You hear
and
it all the time, too.
exasperating.
You hear it.
Yes. But what does work, and this is, along the lines of a more practical solution, what does work is caring. If more Jews would care about more Jews would be open to the truth.
Say again,
If more Jews would care about more Jews, the word care is a very important word, and it has boatloads of implications. If more Jews would care about more Jews would be open to the truth.
If more Jews cared about more Jews.
How is it possible to make these people to care?
Yeah, how do we get them to...
We have to start by caring about them. One of the questions that Eric asked me is, should I care?
Yeah,
should I
care about these people?
Should I care about these people that are
lost?
lost?
Protect my own family, protect my friends.
Try to talk.
But my son, let's take the Israeli soldiers, these guys. I mean, my son, who is not Israeli, well, he is Israeli, he's made Aliyah, but he's an American. He went there to serve because he cared about Yiddishkeit. He cared about Jews. He said, when he told me in high school, I'm going to join the IDF. My wife and I, we said, first of all, we said, you got to go to college first. I mean, that's what we said. And he did. He honored that and went to college first. But he did college in 3 years as fast as he could so he could get over there. But he went there it's like the Israelis, yes, the Israelis are there, but they're protecting their homes and their families, and as well as Yiddishkeit. But my son went there to protect all of us. He went there not just for the Israelis, he went there to protect the Jews in Miami Beach and the Jews in New York and the Jews in Connecticut. That's why he's there. The Jews in Australia. He's got friends from all around the world that have come from the UK, from Australia, from South Africa that he goes into battle with. That they're here for all the Jews, and yet I find it almost an hypocrisy? Hypocritical. Yeah. These Jews don't care. They don't care that he's doing this, but he feels he has to do this, and I feel that if he has to do this, and I have to somehow turn these people, say, listen, there are people there fighting for you because you don't even get it. You don't understand that when they turn against you again, and they will turn, whether it's going to be tomorrow or 10 years or 50 years or 100 years from now, guaranteed. Historically, you can look at all the data points. They come for the Jews. And if you got any DNA in you, and now they can check. They don't have to pull down your pants to see if you're a Jewish male. Now they can just check your DNA and do a blood test to know if you're a Jew or not. And they're going to come. I don't care if you've never gone to a synagogue and you don't even know that you're a Jew. They're coming for you. They're going to wipe out your line. And people don't see that, and he sees that, and he's there fighting for everybody. He's fighting for everybody for this. So I'm trying to fight for him.
Isn't that what Israel's all about? That's the home of the Jews.
Right.
That's
where we're from. We're all from there.
That's the future, the present,
in the past.
Israel is our country.
Yeah, it's our country. That's the other thing. I mean,
for all Jews.
This whole Palestinian thing. I mean, they weren't even. I don't know where.
Well, I'm not talking territorially.
I know.
The idea, a Jewish country, Jewish strength. Jews will not back down.
I think these so-called, I'm not going to say names, you mentioned one of them, but these people, they should, every single one of these, I guess what would I like to happen from this, if this gets out on YouTube and people see it, I would love to have some of these, you'd read about them in the New York Post and in the gossip columns, or people talk about them like they're royalty, whatever it is. That some of these people would stand up and say, you know something, guys, this anti-Semitism is bullshit, If you're Jewish, you should stand up for Israel. You support these soldiers. Support, you know, I know people. I'm not gonna say who. I know people that support orphanages in Africa, and they do all kinds of charity things. And yet, what about the orphanages in? I mean, Jewish people I'm talking about. What about the orphanages in Israel? What about the families? Like, you know, there's 1,000 soldiers that have died this last year. How many, you know, orphans are there now? I mean, this is a calamity. This is so bad. You know, we don't even know. I mean, they're just trying to get to the war. Israel. I've spent a lot of time there. Yes, they're, you know. Actually, another thing. This is another thing. I remember going to this. I wanted to say this. I went to this. I guess Shabbat dinner at a synagogue in Miami Beach, an Orthodox shul. And, you know, after the services, we were sitting down for dinner, and I guess he was South African. He said to me when he found out that my son was whatever, a soldier, he said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about your son. They're the most professional army, and everyone will be okay." And I'm thinking to myself, I just wanted to punch this guy in the face. Yeah. I just wanted to punch him in the face. You know, who is he trying to say this for my benefit or for his? Because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because it is very dangerous. It is, I mean, you know, like my son would send all these letters, and I remember seeing in the news that, I don't know if you know who Smotrich is. Smotrich is one of the ministers, whatever. I don't want to say negative, but anyway, his cousin was killed. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading it, and I said, wow, you know, it's terrible. And then they mentioned the name, and it happens to be his cousin. And then my son writes these letters to us. You know, while he was out there, he writes the letters, and we see them weeks after the fact. He writes this letter. This guy, he was a teacher. He was like 40-something years old. He was a teacher, history teacher in the schools. He got called up, and you know, my son is a philosopher. They have all these philosophical questions about this and that and God and whatever. And then he said that he left the letter open, like, you know, he asked him a question and he didn't answer it. So he got home, and we said, what was the answer? He said, I never got to ask him because we were out there and he got shot in the head and killed. It was Smotrich's cousin. Right. He was with Smotrich's cousin when he was killed. God forbid. I mean, he was standing here. My son was standing here. He got shot in the head and killed. My son was standing here. This is why my wife is sitting in the closet. Okay, doesn't want in the room. She does not want it. She cannot live with this. She can't. That's why she's not here. Not because of you. Although, she doesn't like you that much, or you do. No, I'm just joking. My point is, she just can't. She doesn't want to deal with this.
I want to say one thing. Eric, you said 30% of Israel is at or below the poverty. It's true. Yeah, it's true. It's very sad. It doesn't say much for some of the Israeli government, but the per capita income of Israelis is above Japan. It's above Great Britain.
Really? Okay.
Well, I actually want to go back to what happened to our society where money is playing the major role. I think that it really, some famous Jews, somehow we need to, how it's possible. You talked about Spielberg, or for example, Barbara Streisand. I recall that she was a few years back when the late Shimon Peres turned 90, and she came to Israel to perform, and she got paid like $100,000 something. She didn't come for free. Speaking about the money, where is she? She's quiet too. So I think that we really need to. Exactly. So we actually have to somehow work on those people by example. Who are very famous Jews, to speak out, and some other Jews that are not as famous can hear. They can be as an example. How can we do it?
Yeah, I think you're bringing up an excellent point. Let me first say the general point, and then let's go to your specific point. One of the things that I mentioned was caring about fellow Jews, right? But an aspect of caring should be explaining to our fellow Jews the power that they have and the control that they can wield. And it would be a great idea to go, with your idea that you said, to start an organization that reaches out specifically to famous Jewish people and encourage them to use their voice and their platform, show them a whole network of Jewish support and also maybe non-Jewish support, because there's plenty of non-Jews that do also know the truth and speak the truth. I have friends in
Absolutely. Evangelical Christians have been
Yeah,
definitely helping us.
And so,
no question about it.
And so I think that that's actually an excellent idea that you should pick up, or that somebody should pick up, and try to start some sort of an organization that reaches out to people that have famous Jewish people that have large platforms, and encourage them to use it to speak the truth. I think that's an excellent idea.
CBN, which is a Christian broadcasting company, in the United States and in Israel, are super pro-Israel, and they have some of the best podcasts about what's happening in Israel and the war.
And that's great, but I just want to point out that don't be surprised that the pushback is going to be that I'm going to lose my followers, I'm going to lose my $100,000 gigs, blah, 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 blah.
But so what? They should realize, something?
I'm not saying you shouldn't try.
Platform.
On the positive
God
side.
gave them this platform. They don't realize. They didn't become, none of these people became famous because on their own. God helped them along.
Famous. On the other hand, Jerry Seinfeld, okay, he has such a big name, he actually went to Israel. He was attacked by the left and anti-Israel people and even Jews, but he didn't care about, we
need more people.
It became a public event, where he went there. He was at the
he did. He went. He was good.
He was actually.
Well, we need it's hundreds of these guys.
Booed and everything. Yeah.
There's hundreds of them. If they all came out, if they all started doing the right thing, this thing would turn around so fast.
It's a good question if these people can be organized.
You need organizations.
Yeah.
Organizations.
How many
I
of them?
don't know. Yeah, but the big Jewish organizations, they themselves, I don't know.
It needs to be organized somehow.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think this was a great beginning to our conversation.
It's a great experiment.
Yeah.
This was an experiment, everybody.
I thank you all for participating.
Yeah, what'd you think?
And it's very, very meaningful to be
By the
doing
way,
this.
Thank you so much.
By the way, for people that are hopefully going to watch this on YouTube, Rabbi Akiva Zweig is the Rosh Hashiva of Talmudic College of Florida. In their organization, they have over 1,000 students, and you'll see a link. I believe you're going to have a link on it. If anybody seeing this out in the stratosphere in the internet land wants to donate some money, that'll go to teaching 1,000 kids Torah, which is what he does.
And to care about their Jewish
As
identity
well as
and to help
Jewish identity,
other Jewish
and to
people
help us
care
start
about their
more
Jewish
study
identity.
groups. And by the way, if anyone out there in the world wants to start a study group, you can also contact Rabbi Akiva.
Definitely.
And even if it's not in this market, he will find somebody to come and help you. He will find an Orthodox rabbi to come in, right?
God willing, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, we'll find you somebody.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you. Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.